Hey, real quick before we start the podcast, if you have listened to more than one episode, can you do me a favor and rate and review the show? Now, I'm not big on asking for favors, but we really want to get this podcast listed in the top of all health and fitness podcasts, not just the fitness category. This will take you less than a minute, and if you could do that, that would make us friends forever. And since we refuse all sponsors on the show, this will be my only ask rather than telling you to go check out some supplement or product we don't actually believe in, like every other podcast out there. So please rate and review. Okay, that's it. To the podcast. Hey, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. Jerred Moon here. Today I have an interview. I'm interviewing my friend, Dr. Rob Bell. So he just recently wrote a book called I Can't Wait to Be Patient and the Fastest Way to Get There. So I interview him today and talk about this book, but also just talk about his thoughts on mental toughness. So Dr. Bell is a sports psychologist, and he has worked with high-level athletes from Olympians, PGA Tour, like all sorts of awesome stuff. I've known Dr. Rob Bell for a long time, and my favorite thing about him is not that he just is, all into mental toughness, which is obviously a subject that I love, but he also practices what he preaches. He pushes himself each and every single day. He does some crazy events, and we're going to talk about all of those things. So without any further ado, here is Dr. Rob Bell on I Can't Wait to Be Patient. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. I'm sitting here with Dr. Rob Bell. Dr. Bell, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Coach.
I'm glad to hear. Yeah, so Dr. Bell and I go way back. I mean, I feel like our first phone conversation, I had reached out to Dr. Bell. I'd seen some of his work. I mean, I feel like I talked to you for the very first time, had to have been like 2014 or 15, latest 16. Sure. And we've communicated. You've been on the Better Humanology podcast, and I've always kept up with you on things that you're doing and books that you're writing. And you're on book number 8. Is that right?
Yep, this was 8.
Book number 8. It's incredible. Man. And so I would love to jump into more of this. I actually have a couple questions, not only about the book, but about your writing process too, because to knock out 8 books is just phenomenal. But if you don't mind just giving anyone who's listening, a quick background, synopsis of who you are and what you do, that'd be really helpful.
Yeah, man. So sports psychology coach. So work with athletes, coaches and teams, executives on mental toughness, man. So performing our best when it matters the most, and then how we handle and cope with the adversity, setbacks, and struggle in life. One of my beliefs, and I think it's the same with you, man, but it's like, everyone's an athlete. Our office is just different. And it's
right.
Like, so working with executives, or if it's going to be pro athletes or collegiate athletes, mentality is exactly the same, right? It's just the arena kind of changes. So I've been blessed, man, to really do that. And to be like totally transparent, it's my purpose, and it's what really gives me joy, like in life. Like when the book kind of got done, I'm an addict mentality, right? I mean, I wish I could say I wasn't, but I mean, it's like I need to channel that stuff. Well, there's always a come down effect. So after the book gets done and it gets published, wow, congratulations, man, it's great. And then, we come back off that mountain, right? Like feeling really great, come back off the mountain. And it was just struggling, man, for like a week and a half, just like out of routine. And what really brought me joy was being able to coach others. And it's what snapped me back in it. So it's like the importance of that. When I'm struggling, I can go to like one of your videos and watch that and be like, yeah, it's exactly it, man. It's we're getting from point A to point B. It's going to be tough, but this too shall pass. And it just reinforced, man, about how much I love coaching. I'm sure you feel the same way, man, but it's like when you coach other people, we're coaching ourselves at the same time. And I think that's the real gift.
Yeah. And I think I can definitely feel the exact same thing, because sometimes just running a business in general, like sometimes I didn't start any of this to be the best business owner possible, right? And so sometimes when I go too far down that path and I get too into the weeds with business, I start to lose sight of like, what am I passionate about? What am I doing? Because the business side, to be honest, is kind of boring. But I like more of what you're talking about, like coaching people, talking to people, helping them push themselves. Like that once I get back into that, I really get fired up again. And even being able to talk about it, gets me fired up. So I did just recently finish your book. I Can't Wait to Be Patient and the Fastest Way to Get There. And I told you before we recorded the podcast, it was really convicting. And luckily, I caught some nuances in there that I think you and I are more similar than we are different. When the type of people that we are, and maybe not being the most patient human beings on the planet. But what was the big reason behind you wanting to write this book? Because you're like, hey, this needs to be written. I think it's an idea you had at some point, but you really felt like it needed to get out there and hit the world. So, like, why do you feel like we need this book today?
Yeah, man, it's a great question. Because I still kind of toil around with it, and it was the most difficult book I had to write, for several reasons, which we can talk about. But this is what I've seen is that, we're in the hustle culture, you know what I mean? And I work
Mm-hmm.
with dogs. So I work with people that get stuff done, successful business owners, people that are trying to win major championships. And so I do not work with people getting ready to get ready. Like that's not
Right. Yeah.
I'm not the guy. You know what I mean? Like you got to go someplace else to get if you need motivation sort of thing. That is not me. I do not work with motivation. And not saying that there's not parts of it, you know what I mean? But you tweak it. But if it's working with racehorses, working with dogs, what I've seen is like, okay, well, what part are they missing? And the part that misses is that this too shall pass, meaning they're so driven towards that mountaintop, towards reaching that mountaintop. And once they get there, they got to come back down. And it's the coming back down that becomes a huge struggle for them. And that's what I've seen. And it was like, well, what's the skill that's lacking on that? You know what I mean? Because people will tout it up. This is life-changing event, right? I mean, you sold your business for $20 million. It's fantastic. But they come back down off that. And so the part that I saw in terms of like patience was really working with our most precious resource, and that's time. Time, without a doubt, is our most precious resource because it's non-renewable. And it's the same for everybody. And so, what I think is that we have just gotten away from a positive relationship with time. Once we know how fast it goes and how quick it is, we're not at we don't waste it as much, and we hold every moment really as sacred, even the bad times. And that's where I thought patience really came into play, is that these individuals that were so driven, so successful, that there needed to be an off switch. There wasn't an off switch. It was never an off switch. They became urgent, which we need, right? We need to be urgent towards that which is important. But the part that I saw was we're urgent towards everything. And
Right.
that does not work, because once that faucet is on, there has to be an off switch. There has to be that which this really does not matter. So I'm not going to approach this with a sense of urgency. And that's the part that I saw. Well, what's the counter to that? And the counter to that is patience, man, and being patient with ourselves, being patient with others, being patient with the results, but being patient with, just overall the process in terms of what we're doing. And I didn't write the book saying, hey, I'm so patient, look at me. It's, I can't wait to be patient. I suck at patience. What are all the skills that go into this, and how does this tie into the mental game? And that's where I'm really looking at it in terms of recovery. I don't think there's not too many people that overtrain. I just think we under recover. And you tell me if
Mm-hmm.
I'm wrong on that one. You know what I'm saying? But what I see is like, well, recovery piece is so important. Patience is recovery of the mind. And that's the part that becomes so crucial to overall happiness, joy, and even success and significance in life.
And so, a big part of what I'm hearing is you're talking about the process, right? Like being able to enjoy the process, be patient with the process, and perhaps if you're looking to achieve something, even patience in what comes after a great achievement. And so, how do we learn to enjoy the process a little bit more? I think we've all heard that, but it's something that's very challenging to do when you are after something or you have a goal? Like, how do we learn to enjoy the process a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question, man. So it's like, well, we got to look at like time and knowing. See, the part that hit me, and even in writing the book, was we've all heard that this too shall pass,
Mm-hmm.
but we always say it sort of like it is what it is. You know what I mean? Well, no one ever says it is what it is when something's good. You know what I mean? It is what it is means something's bad has happened. I've kind of abdicated responsibility. Hey, it is what it is, which I hate that verse. You know what I mean? So we're saying this too shall pass as a negative thing. And it's true, right? The difficulty that you're going through right now, this too shall pass. Well, why is that true? It's only true and it's only a fact because the good times can't last. So, because that birthday party or that wedding celebration or the graduation or the sale or the championship, because that feeling does not last, that alone is proof that the bad times don't last either. So, not like some saying, but that is proof. Because the good times can't last, it also means the bad times can't last either. And then what we look back on how do we enjoy that process? Well, see, we're designed to get from point A to point B as fast as possible. No question. And not that there's anything wrong with it, but we've romanticized speed so much that if you look at anything that's going to be salesy, they're going to put a time component to it, right? Like, which one would
Mm-hmm.
you buy? Hey, how to become a well rounded, fit athlete in under 12 months, or how to become, a cut up, shredded athlete in 30 days or less. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that
Yeah.
appeal of time. Well, the way that I think that we enjoy that process, man, is to focus on the rhythm. What's the rhythm of life is what we're doing, incorporating into every our life and our fabric. Because if we have to shut it on and shut it off, and if we're urgent towards everything, then it's really tough to enjoy that process. You know what I mean? It's like all we're doing is we're striving for that dopamine hit, for that hit, but that's going to wear off and it's going to leave us empty and it's not fulfilled. Well, what is it that's really leaving us fulfilled? And then it's just getting back to, am I doing the things on a daily basis, on a weekly basis? Am I at least doing these activities that give me energy, give me purpose, that can fire me up? And not saying it's going to be the entire business, but am I at least doing that on like a daily basis? So that's the part I look at. Hey, if I'm doing something I enjoy, well, then the process, man, takes care of itself. So I just look at, hey, rhythm is more important than speed. And that's one of the ways that we get focused on the process.
Yeah. I think that rhythm, I think I came to this realization without having the words for it, like that you've kind of put in the book, but I kind of was obsessed with self-development, self-improvement, just reading the books, listening to the podcasts, all those kind of things, exercise. But then I finally stopped one day after having done it for a couple of years, and I was like, what's the goal? Where are we, like, where are we going? Like, how much better can you get? And then I realized, like, there's not necessarily an end goal. It's just, here are the habits that you need to have. Like, you always need to be improving yourself through reading challenging material, through exercise, through eating right, through drinking enough water, getting enough sleep. Like, these are just things that you have to do, but there's not necessarily anywhere you're going. And I think that was actually good for me when I finally kind of realized, like, hey, you're not really going anywhere. Like, this is just, these are the habits you've decided to have in life to try and be the best person possible, but there's no real end game here. And that kind of took some of the stress, because I felt like when I first started, like, I was rushing to nothing. I was like, I wanted to read, like, a book every single week, and, like, do the hardest workouts and all this stuff. And, like, those things are good, but it's like, well, is this sustainable? And then what are we even chasing? So I think I really resonate
Right.
with what you've said. And another thing in your book,
And it,
go ahead.
oh, sorry, Jared. Like it's such a yin and yang. Like there's such a give and take when it comes to that. You know what I mean? And that's the part why it was so difficult to like write. But yeah, man, go ahead because I love when you start to talk and get flowing, man.
Oh no, I just another part of your book that was I think probably described my wife and I. You talk about J's and P's, um, and I
Oh
think that
yeah.
I'm like the definition of a J, and she's probably the definition of a P. And so I would love for you to explain that to the audience a little bit more, because I seriously, when I was reading that, I was like, that was the most convicting, couple pages for me. I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm a J to a T. Like I really feel like I'm patient
Yeah.
in big things. Like I think I can be patient like in an investment or in business. So if you ask me if I had patience, I'd be like, yeah, I'm a patient person. But after reading the book, I'm like, no, I'm definitely this Jay who's like, you try and throw something in my schedule and like I'm miserable human being for like an hour or two. So go ahead and talk about those two different types of people a little bit and
Yeah.
like maybe some tactics in working with each.
Yeah, for sure, man. It's a great point, man. It's like, and any listeners, man, they can go to like the website, like we got patients personality quiz, like they can get on there and it's it's just can'twalk.com and they can take the patient personality quiz. And I it's really difficult because man, we're the same way. I'm a J, my wife's a P. So it's like, how do you want to spend your day off? That's how we just gotta look at how do you want to spend your day off? Well, for me, a day off is very comfortable if I know what's coming up, right? All right, man, 6 a.m. workout, it's gonna be great. And then we're gonna be hanging here. By all means, like I know what the plan is. If there's no plan on the day off, like I still kind of struggle with it. And the reason why is because my mind as a J is structured, it's planned. I need to know what's coming up, right? That's how I make sense of the outer world. And when I'm saying JRP, it's really just getting back to probably the most popular psychological test that was out there, personality test in the Myers-Briggs. And we're just looking at the last letter. The last letter is a J or a P. Everything else really doesn't matter. And so being a J, I need to have things structured. As a P, well, P's don't like to have any structure, man. It's like, what are we going to be doing the day off? You can't put them in the box because they're more free spirited. You know what I mean? It's like, hey,
Mhm.
whatever the wind's going to blow is where we're going to go, and they get freedom in that. Well, that does not work for me, right? Now, it doesn't mean that I can't have fun. Like I can have fun. I just need to know what's the environment and like, hey, we're spending all afternoon here. Great, man. By all means, it's fine. So what happens in daily life is with J's and P's is J's need space to process any kind of change in their environment and what's happened. So wife comes, hey, honey, do you want to go to lunch? Now, I didn't know that was part of the plan. So automatically, whether it's a great idea or not, has nothing to do with it. It has to do with I need time to process the information. Now, what happens is, and my daughter's a J as well. I hit her with the information, hey, honey, do you want to go to lunch? Automatically, she's going to start to complain. And the reason why she starts to complain or moan is because we've messed with the schedule. You've messed with the plan, right? This wasn't part of the plan. I didn't know it was there. Not saying it's not a good idea, but what happens is they start to complain. And now you are in that space of them complaining. Now, we're not talking about lunch anymore. We're talking about, well, what do you mean? Like, we're going to be back way before 4 o'clock. You know what I mean? You're going to have plenty of time to get ready for that. And now we're going back and forth, and now we're fighting because the space wasn't created in terms of allowing somebody to process it. So the way that we deal with J's, the way that we deal with myself, is you got to hit them with the information and run. If you hit them with the information and stay there, you're going to be sucked into this vortex of hearing the J complain. So what you got to do, and this is what I try coaching my wife up, and God bless her. I mean, but it still does the same thing. So when she tells me, she's like, "I'm gonna hit you with information and run." Sometimes she'll hit me and then just stay there, wait for my reaction. I'm like, "No, you just have to leave." So you hit him and run. You hit him with the information and then just leave. Come back. Be like, "Hey, man, I'll come back in 3 minutes and then I'll check in with you. Hey, do you want to go for lunch? I'll be back in a couple minutes and check in." Now, what happened is the J's still going to complain, but nobody's in there to be infected by that awful processing that kind of happens in the mentalities. So I mean, that's how we deal with J's, and it's remarkable how well it works when we put it into play. Man, we got to hit them and run.
Yeah, because we're not bad people. We just need a minute, right? We just need to like work it into our plan. Uh, It's so funny because I think that's so true. And I mean, my wife and I have been married, 13, 13 years this year. And it probably took me 10 years to figure out, again, unknowingly, the whole J and P thing. But like, I have to, if we have a day where we're doing nothing, let's just say vacation, we actually have a vacation coming up this summer. I already know, since there's really nothing on the calendar for vacations with us. Like we go and we're there. Like we'll figure the rest out. I have to wake up. I still have to wake up early and do a workout. It just gives me like that little bit of
Yeah.
control for the day. Like I know that there's a plan, because if I say like, "Oh, I'll work out tomorrow," it's just not going to work. And then she would prefer to have like a very different morning than I would. And that's fine. We don't have to be the same person, but I'm like, no, I'm just, you enjoy your coffee. Like I'll be there like before you're probably finishing it, and I'll have some coffee with you, but I just have to get up and work out. Just those small choices right there where I at least feel like I'm in control of my day. When on vacation, I'm in a P's world. And this is kind of like just, we're going
Yeah.
to do whatever we feel like that day. It gives me a little bit of, sanity. And I do think, we have not tried the hit and run tactic, but that's something I'm going to talk to my wife about. Be like, hey, this might be something we want to try, and see. You also said in your book that text messages work really well for Jays, like just like drop a bomb on them via text. That way they can do their own internal process without you having to be around.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not because if you start complaining over text, man, it's kind of weird, right? Like
Right,
I'm complaining to somebody over text, like, okay, whatever. And I do not like. I'm not a big fan of text messaging, and expect it cannot be anything important. If it's anything important or has emotion to it, do not do
right.
it over text. Absolutely not. Like it has to be just something very simple. And then text can really be a great advantage to this.
That's awesome. Well, let's get into some of your personal journeys here. Tell me about your ultra marathon that you finished recently.
Man, like the 100 miler.
Yeah, how was that?
Or yeah, because I kinda do them. I'll do them every few months, really, man. The 100 miler, I mean, it was, I refer to it now in terms of like, it was a hinge moment because whenever I'm going through a struggle now, I've got an anchor point of, "Buddy, this too shall pass, man. You're just at mile 45." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, you just gotta keep moving, and that really is with life, man. But, like, when you hear these things and you don't have an anchor point, it makes it a little bit tougher, you know what I mean? But it's like, look, every workout ends, every tough time we're gonna go through ends, every good time we're gonna go through ends, and, so that's sort of like a life lesson, I think, man, comes from that one. And, the toughest part of the race, man, it was just, it was really when I was finishing my 50, I puked at mile 45, but I was
Mm,
hydrated, you know what I mean? But I just really struggled with the heat. And there's I had a videographer there, man, because I wanted to kind of record that stuff and didn't get the puke, but I'm sitting at, I've got to go back out. It's a loop. You got four loops, 4 25-mile loops. And the really tough part, man, is I'm like about a mile there from mile 50, and it was the finish for some people. Like some people are doing the 50 miler. And so if you can picture this, it's like 8 o'clock at night. They're coming in, they're talking about the cold beer that they're getting ready to have and like that hamburger. And then it kind of hits you. It's like, dude, you're not even halfway. You know what I
dang.
mean? So it's like
Yeah.
those sort of moments, and then not feeling the best. Um, I had it already, and this was a 10-minute rest stop, and it turned to be about 30 minutes. I mean, the clock is running. I'm looking at the clock, and you never know how fast 30 minutes is when you're just staring at the clock thinking you got to get up and go. Well, and it wasn't like there wasn't any idea that I wasn't going to get up and go, but it's like I just don't know if I'm going to throw up. You know what I mean? So it's like
Hmm.
everything takes a back seat to the stomach when it's dictating how fast you can eat, how fast you can drink, and you don't really don't want to eat anything. So it's like that part was, revealing in terms of like when you meet yourself there and this, and that's the part that I love about your coaching, man, is, meeting yourself. You meet yourself. I don't always like who I meet, um, but But even with that, man, it's always getting back to a lot of times what was the preparation for that race? You know what I mean? How was the preparation? Because that's what holds the real meaning to it. You know what I mean? And then there are little moments throughout the race of meeting people that they're not doing well in the race, and you try talking to them, but they drop. Well, what was going on there? These sort of moments kind of stick with me, like when looking at those kind of races, and why'd they drop? Like, why did they already have it made up in their mind that they were done? My mentality for that race, very, very simple, right? I'm going to die or I'm going to finish this race. That's it, man. You leave yourself no other option, you will get it done. It's as simple as that. I'm not saying that's easy. I'm not saying that works for everybody, but like, look, man, if I give myself an out, I'm going to take it. That's why I don't give myself any outs. Like, there is no other out. That's why the best runs are out and backs, right? All you got to do is make it out. If it's kind of a circle, and now you can play this mental game with yourself on, man, maybe I cut it short a little bit. Like, I'm going to cut it short, because that's how that mind works, man. The mind always wants that out. So it's like, that was the mentality heading in the race, and that's why I was successful. Is like, and it works with anything in life, man. Whether it's going to be business, there is no plan B. It's only a plan A. And when you have no out, when you have another option, then you can really see what you'll accomplish in life.
Yeah, I think that's the mentality for a race that size. Like, I just feel like that's the mentality you have to have, especially with it being exactly like you said, like loops with people having beers and burgers at your halfway point. Like, how hard that would be if you didn't have that mentality to just be like, because in what world is 50 miles not a good run? You know what I mean? Like, if you finish 50, you're like, hey, that was pretty good. I could still be proud of myself, but that's not what we came here to do. So I
Right.
think that takes you have to go in with that mentality, or it'd be very easy to quit. And so you're doing these races. Would you say you meet yourself every time you do one of these races, or is it only particular races in under certain circumstances?
No, I think you meet yourself. You meet yourself in one way or another in those races, but you meet yourself in the training as well, man. And it's the training part of meeting yourself that you have to be prepared on who's that person, right? Who is the real core. And it's only when, like, you're naked in front of the gods with doing hard things, like as you talk about and teach, do we see what's underneath it all, man. Don't always like who I meet. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
don't always like that person that wants to slow it down here, and just, yeah, I don't always like that person. Um, but that person is there, and it's not about fighting it. It's just about recognizing, okay, well, who is it that's talking to me right now? What does that person want? What's that need? Um, does it really want to slow down because, hey, there's intestinal issues, or does it want to slow down because they just don't want to push it? You know what I mean? And it's just really, it's figuring out, hey, who's that person that you're going to meet? We don't meet that person on a daily basis. So, because we can crowd ourselves out with noise, with being busy, that we don't always have to meet it. Or that person's voice is kind of shaded a little bit in terms of just being busy or not wanting to do something. Um, so it's only like doing those things, man, do we really meet ourselves.
Yeah. And I think the mentality that has to be taken there, for everyone else who's working out and trying to meet themselves, like, when your brain or your mind suggests, hey, let's quit, or let's slow down, or we don't need to do this, let's take the shortcut, like whatever. I think everyone needs to know that those are okay thoughts. They're normal thoughts. Like, everyone's going to have those. You can call it mental weakness, but it's not who you are. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned, and frequently trying to meet myself, is like, I'm not embarrassed that there's a version of me that wants to quit on a 6 mile run. That's not a super challenging thing for especially someone like you. Like, going on a 6 mile run is not a big deal, right? But I might find that in mile 5, I'm like, yeah, you know what, 5 is good enough. I don't want to do 6. And then that's also when I get
Mhm.
like kind of fired up. Like, I love to like find that version of me, and it's always at different points and for different reasons. You might have other things going on in your life, but I kind of light up when that comes, because I'm like, oh, great, here's an opportunity. Like, you have an opportunity now
Right.
to talk to this version of yourself, but it's not who you are. It's just a thought. It's just, we have all sorts of crazy thoughts all day. It doesn't mean every single thought that you have is who you are. It's just a great way to practice, talking to yourself in a different way. And I love
Yeah.
that.
And that's it, man. Like, we get the test first and then we get the lesson afterwards, right? Well, not every
Right.
test we're not going to pass, man. And school doesn't work that way. You don't show up and be like, hey, here's the final exam, and then I'm going to teach you everything you need to know. Well, life and sports and doing activities like that, tough stuff, you get the test and then the lesson comes afterwards. So, and why does that happen when it comes to the mind? Well, the mind just has one job, right? That's to stay safe. Mind doesn't want you sprinting here. Mind
Right.
click it up a notch because that's uncomfortable. That's not safe. Um, so mine doesn't want you to get up and go. You know what I mean? Mine wants you, man, why don't we just stay here? And you know what? You don't need to do that run tonight, right? Just do it tomorrow. That is meeting yourself. And then it's like, that's just the mind just trying to keep you safe. That's all it is. And then how we respond to that voice, that version of ourselves, then that becomes, well, we do that enough, then that becomes, well, our response to that becomes who you are.
I love it. What's your training look like right now, Dr. Bell?
Man, I feel I've just gotten in these ruts. I'm wanting to change up things. Because what I'll do with my training, man, is I'll do like a boot camp now, probably like once a week. But every other morning I'm just waking up and I'm running 6 miles like with my chocolate lab, and I'll come in and do some stretching, some core, and then kind of calling it. So for me, like that becomes a bit of a rut on the weekends. And I just finished the ultra like last month, but I'm kind of at that point where it's like, let's just start switching it up a little bit. And that's the part about being an athlete. Like, I like switching it up, whether it's, hey, let's just do some training in the pool now, let's get on the row machine, like doing that. But it only works for me. So, I mean, I like switching that up. What really works is I have to have that goal that's going to be out there. You know what I'm saying? If I
Yeah.
have that goal that's going to be out there, then the training picks up naturally. And that's why I think the toughest thing, the way the way you win a race is sign up. Like, oh man, yeah, I'm
Right.
thinking about signing up for that race. No, no, no. Sign up now, and then you start training for it. You don't start training for it and then decide to sign up later, because it just doesn't work. You know what I mean? You got to sign up, and then the training fits nicely with that. So, I mean, I get to be a part of Western States that's coming up. So I'm pacing a friend that's going to be there. And blessed to be able to do that, man, because that's a sacred race.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think I haven't done an event. Well, I did one with my brother last year, but that was a super short one. I haven't done an event in like 2 years because I hurt my back, and so I just wouldn't actually allow myself to sign up for anything because I knew that you know all or nothing mentality that you're saying you have to take into a race is the
Yeah.
same mentality I take into a race. And if my back was just killing me, I would still be like, I have to finish the race, and I didn't want to put
Right.
myself in that kind of situation. But at the same time, the last 2 years of training have been very difficult for me mentally. Like, I get it done, but I always like to have something on the calendar too. Something that's going. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm signing up for a lot of things towards the end of this year and 2024. Just really looking forward to kind of getting back into some of those environments and getting back at meeting myself in some bigger events.
Yeah, man.
All right, man. Well, let's go to the quick fire questions. You've answered these, but it's been a long time, so let's see how things have changed. So, what is the hardest workout you have ever done?
And when you asked that, man, I remember the first time I did it. The hardest workout that I did do was 100, 100 hundreds. And that was like a New
Yeah,
Year's Day. So doing, and this was in the pool. And I remember that got tough, man, on
yeah,
on an interval. Um, Probably the toughest workout I did, man, was probably 100-mile trail run. You know what I mean? That's training. So yeah, that was the toughest one, man.
yeah. That's a really hard workout. In your opinion, what's the best activity for building
That was,
mental
it was,
toughness?
it was like, yeah, it was like 23,000 calories too, man. I think to that. So it was pretty good.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah.
Your
That was the
wearable is
cool
tracking
thing
that?
about the wearables. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly, man.
that's
Yep.
crazy.
Man, what are the best activities for building mental toughness? So it's like mental toughness, there's a lot of variations to it, right? Like you can be really mentally tough and disciplined. Like you and I both share that, right? Like the discipline part's really not that, it's not that hard. Not saying it's not hard, but it's not that hard. But then you've got like, all right, well, let's talk about mental toughness and belief in yourself. Well, mine kind of comes and it goes, you know. What about focus? Your ability to stay focused on this task right here and now. Okay. Your ability to let go of mistakes. How's the mental toughness when it comes to that? Mine, awful. You know what I mean? I'll wear that mistake for a day. So it's really looking at all right, what part of mental toughness are we kind of looking at? And then I'm just totally agreeing with you, man. It's any time that you're going to be competing against the most difficult opponent, and that is against yourself. That is when the voice, whatever it is, starts talking to you. And it might be after the event. So for me, man, a lot of times it's after the event. And what did I learn about the situation? What would I do different? Hey, what did you do well? Right? Like, can you hold on to the successes? So I just think, man, it's going to be any type of activity that's putting you in an uncomfortable situation that gets you kind of talking to yourself and where you meet yourself. So, I mean, that can be a variety of things. What are the toughest ones? Well, geez, man, I mean, the toughest ones for me, I mean, talking, in a stressful situation with my 14-year-old daughter, you know what I mean? When something's really emotional and maybe I haven't handled it the right way. Well, I'd rather go for a run. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'd rather do that, man. So
Yeah.
it's like life doesn't get easier, man. It's just like, what are the skills and what are the tools you're trying to implement into these things? And so, yeah, that's what I look at it, man. And again, we just have to realize that we're always getting the test first and the lesson comes afterwards. I think if we take that approach, hey, we're in more of a learning mentality, more scientist mentality, then I need to ace this test.
Yeah. I think breaking mental toughness down into multiple facets like that is awesome because we tend to like gravitate towards where we are more comfortable, even if our comfort is in, like you're saying, discipline and doing hard things like that. That might not actually be in embracing discomfort by doing those things. It's just more of who we are. But yeah, if we make a mistake, being able to quickly adjust and react to that in a different way, that can be a very difficult thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing where you're comfortable, even inside of mental toughness, I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, if you could only have one piece of equipment to train with for the rest of your life, what would it be?
I'd probably say an axe.
An axe. That's
Because
awesome.
yeah. And it just kind of just came to me, man. Because I mean, I love hard work. Like I love, and if it was chopping wood, man, then it would be, yeah, chopping that tree and then chopping that down. I'd love to do that.
That would be a great
So an
workout.
axe. Yeah.
Chop one tree down per day, just and turn it into firewood. That would be
Right.
incredible.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, Dr. Bell, it's been awesome having you back on the podcast. Where can
Mm-hmm.
people learn more about your work, your books, everything that you're doing?
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. And again, like the website book or the book website, it's can'twaitbook.com. They can take the patient's personality quiz there, infographics they can download. Obviously, they can order the book. And then my website, it's just drrobbell.com, DRROBBELL.com.
Awesome. Well, awesome. And I will make sure that we have all those links in the show notes. If anyone is looking to grab his book, I absolutely recommend that you do. You can go to any of the links that he just mentioned, or you can go to our show notes and we'll have the links there as well. Dr. Bell, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks so much, man. Love it. Love being on the show with you.
To the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. If you want to learn more, go to garagegymathlete.com. You can learn about our training. Let us send you a copy of our book, The Garage Gym Athlete, or you can even get featured on the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. Thanks for listening.